All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're breaking down an overwhelmingly dense and frankly volatile day in global events. We are focusing strictly on the facts exactly as they unfolded on July 21st, 2026. Now, this isn't just going to be some random list of headlines. We're actually going to connect the dots across multiple continents to show you exactly how incredibly interconnected our world stage is right now. To make sense of all this chaos, we're going to hit four main areas today. First up, the escalating Middle East crisis. Second, developments in the Russia-Ukraine war. Third, global politics and trade. And finally, health and natural disasters. Let's get right to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the Middle East crisis escalates, specifically looking at the expanding conflict in the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea.
11. That is a huge number, right? Well, that's the exact number of consecutive rounds of airstrikes the United States has now conducted. According to U.S. Central Command, after 10 straight nights of heavy bombardment, this 11 wave came in and specifically targeted and destroyed Iranian military hangars, command centers, and missile sites. The sheer, sustained intensity of this military action is literally reshaping the immediate security landscape of that entire region overnight. But what does this actually look like on the ground? Or I should say, on the water? Well, pivoting from that massive macro-scale military operation, we can see the immediate economic fallout. An Iranian strike just heavily damaged a commercial oil tanker right off the coast of Oman. The situation escalated so fast that the crew was forced to completely abandon the ship. Because of this, traffic through this absolutely vital maritime corridor has slowed to an absolute crawl. You can imagine the massive bottlenecks this creates for global energy supplies and what that's going to mean for global markets. It's honestly like looking at a high-stakes split screen right now. On the military front, beyond those U.S. strikes, Houthi forces have declared a naval blockade, aggressively threatening commercial ships heading to Saudi ports. This is forcing multiple massive tankers to just turn around and reroute all the way via the Suez Canal. But counterbalancing all that kinetic action, you have these urgent diplomatic chess moves happening at the exact same time. Mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Pakistan are urgently proposing a 10-day emergency ceasefire to de-escalate the Persian Gulf. We're also seeing some really complex strategic posturing. For instance, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich announced that Israel will actually decline participation in the U.S. strikes to focus resources on its own immediate borders. Meanwhile, over in Europe, Bulgaria just granted the U.S. essential access to Besmer Air Base. This allows them to deploy up to 8 refueling tankers to sustain these exact Middle Eastern operations. It is a highly, highly complex chessboard. Moving just a bit to the west, the conflict in Gaza remains incredibly intense. Satellite images have now confirmed that the Israeli military is actively constructing a massive earthen physical barrier right across the territory. At the exact same time, medical personnel on the ground are reporting that ongoing airstrikes in Gaza City have tragically killed 12 Palestinians, a number that sadly includes 4 children. Now, right along the southern border of Lebanon, there's a highly structured, U.S.-brokered pilot program actively underway. It's essentially a 3-step process. It begins with an Israeli military pullback that's followed by Lebanese troops deploying directly into Zoutar al-Harbiya, and their stated objective, to confiscate Hezbollah weaponry. It's a very localized, fragile attempt at stabilization in the middle of an overwhelmingly militarized environment. Moving on to Section 2, Russia-Ukraine war developments and the grinding reality of entrenched warfare. 900. Let that sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of Ukrainian drones that Russian air defense forces reported downing across multiple sectors. Concurrently, a massive Ukrainian drone barrage struck the Belgorod region inside Russia. The human cost of that specific strike left 10 people dead and 79 others wounded. It is a terrifying indicator of how drone warfare has completely saturated this modern conflict. It's literally turned the skies into a constant battleground. So how does this relentless battlefield pressure ultimately affect leadership? Well, inside Ukraine, significant political friction surrounding defense strategy has actually prompted a major shakeup at the very top. President Volodymyr Zelensky has officially dismissed his commander-in-chief, Oleksandr Syrsky. Replacing him is the former Joint Forces commander, Mikhailo Japatai. Swapping out your top military commander during such a critical phase of entrenched warfare really highlights the intense internal and external pressures the Ukrainian government is navigating right now. And, just like we saw earlier in the Gulf of Oman, the deadly collateral damage on global shipping continues over in the Black Sea as well. Ukraine confirmed that a Russian cruise missile strike hit a Guinea-Bissau-flagged cargo ship right off the coast of Odessa. This strike tragically killed at least 10 maritime crew members, which included 4 Indian nationals. It's a stark reminder of how these regional conflicts can instantly threaten the lives of international workers and upend the stability of our global supply chains.
All right, Section 3, Global Politics and Trade, focusing on domestic unrest and economic friction.
Starting over in New Delhi, India, we're seeing major domestic unrest spilling right out into the streets. Police used force to break up massive, large-scale student and political demonstrations. And during these protests, authorities actually detained Lok Sabha opposition leader Rahul Gandhi. What's absolutely wild here is that these immense crowds were rallying to demand the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan over widespread irregularities and a rapidly escalating exam scandal. It really shows just how quickly domestic controversies, like a scandal over school exams, can snowball into massive political detention and large-scale volatility.
Switching gears to the economy, a massive shockwave has just hit North American trade. Washington has officially put forward a proposal to impose a staggering 50% tariff on Canadian goods. Seriously, 50%! The economic friction this creates between two of the world's most historically integrated trading partners is genuinely hard to overstate. It's massive.
And as you'd probably guess, the pushback was immediate and severe. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney came out swinging, strongly denouncing the tariff plan and explicitly calling it a clear violation of the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA. By putting this exact statement front and center, Prime Minister Carney is setting the stage for what could very quickly become a severe diplomatic and economic confrontation right across the North American border.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, new leadership is attempting to navigate these very same global currents. Newly installed British Prime Minister Andy Burnham moved briskly to form his government today. His very first moves included officializing his cabinet appointments, most notably naming John Healey as the new Chancellor of the Exchequer. But crucially, Burnham immediately got on the phone to engage U.S. leaders in discussions regarding both trade and global maritime security. This clearly shows he recognizes the immense global pressures we just discussed in the Red Sea and the Black Sea, essentially tying all these separate geopolitical threads together.
Finally, Section 4, Health and Natural Disasters, looking at some truly unpredictable human vulnerabilities.
6,571. In just the state of Michigan alone, health authorities are tracking an ongoing cyclosporiasis outbreak linked to contaminated produce. The outbreak has confirmed a massive spike in infections across the state. Now, this really highlights the vast and sometimes completely invisible vulnerabilities within our modern, heavily interconnected food supply chains. A severe health emergency can erupt just as quickly as a geopolitical one. And then, of course, we have the entirely unpredictable, devastating forces of nature. Over in eastern Afghanistan, extreme torrential rainfall just triggered severe flash flooding in Nuristan province. The immediate human toll is incredibly tragic, resulting in the deaths of at least 20 residents and leaving more than 100 people missing. When you look at local authorities trying to manage this kind of sudden, acute infrastructural collapse, you realize how quickly a natural disaster can completely overwhelm a region that's already dealing with a myriad of other pressures. So that brings us right back here. When you look at this incredibly dense web of events from just one single day, from missile strikes and 900 drone barrages to massive trade wars, domestic protests, and natural disasters, we really have to ask this critical question. How can nations balance these sudden domestic emergencies alongside surging, interconnected global conflicts? How can the global system successfully navigate compounded natural crises while the world stage is this intensely volatile? That's what you should take away from this explainer today. A crystal clear understanding of the sheer interconnectedness of our global fragility. Thank you so much for diving into the facts with me, and I'll leave you to ponder that vital question.